I always thought my marriage was perfect. Ethan was the husband I had always dreamed of, and our life together was a smooth, comfortable journey. My sister-in-law, Chloe's engagement party was supposed to be a double blessing for our family. I had planned everything to near perfection until that afternoon when my eyes caught a reflection in a mirror at the most exclusive boutique on Fifth Avenue, the reflection of my husband embracing another woman. To everyone else, my life was a flawless picture. My name is Isabelle. At 35, I had built everything from the ground up, a respected management consulting firm, a modern minimalist townhouse on the Upper East Side, and a 10-year marriage to Ethan. Ethan was the kind of man everyone loved. He was charismatic, well-spoken, and had a smile that could melt the most rigid corporate board. He ran one of the subsidiary groups I had founded. I gave him the position not because he was my husband, but because I believed he was competent. At least that's what I used to think. I was the brain behind the scenes. Ethan was the charming public face. We were the perfect team, or so I always told myself. That morning, our house was busier than usual. Ethan's only sister, Chloe, was getting engaged that weekend. Chloe was a lovely girl. At just 26, she was a bit naive, but had a pure heart, and I loved her like my own sister. After their mother passed away 5 years ago, Ethan and I became her unofficial guardians, and now she was a boo-tee to start a new life. I stood at the dining table, a tablet in one hand and a cup of strong black coffee in the other, my eyes scanning a seemingly endless to-do list, confirm caterers, VIP guest list, family outfits. Isabelle, Chloe's voice chirped through the phone. I put her on speaker. I'm so nervous. I let out a small smile. Calm down, Chloe. Everything is under control. You just have to show up and look beautiful. It's not that, she whined. It's my future mother-in-law, Mrs. Victoria. Ah, Victoria, the woman who would become Chloe's mother-in-law. Chloe's fiancé, Matthew, was Victoria's only son. Matthew was a good kid, polite, hardworking, and seemed to genuinely love Chloe, but his mother, Victoria, was a different story. I had never met her in person, our hectic schedules never aligned, but her reputation preceded her. Victoria was a high society socialite, the widow of a real estate tycoon. Included city officials and Fortune 500 CEOs, and her photos were often splashed across lifestyle magazines, always impeccably dressed, adorned with dazzling jewelry. What about her? I asked, motioning for our housekeeper to add more hot water to my cup. She's intimidating, Isabelle. So glamorous. Yesterday, she sent me a designer handbag out of the blue. I looked it up online, and the price could cover the down payment for a condo. I'm scared I'll make a mistake, that I'll look like some girl from the suburbs in front of her. I sighed. Chloe, you're marrying Matthew, not his mother. What's important is that he loves you. As for Victoria, just consider her a bonus feature. Be polite as you always are. You're a good person, there's no reason to lose your confidence. Yeah, you're right, sis. Thanks. You always know how to calm me down. Time. Now, focus on your spa day. Don't get stressed or your makeup won't set properly, I joked. I hung up and looked back at my tablet. Victoria, I was a little curious. Ethan said he'd met her a few times at informal family gatherings. She's an interesting woman, Isabelle, very influential, he had told me a few weeks ago. Ethan came downstairs impeccably dressed in a crisp blue shirt. The scent of his expensive cologne, a blend of oud and citrus, filled the air. He kissed the top of my head. Morning, honey. You look busy. Just making sure everything is perfect for Chloe's big day. You haven't forgotten we have the joint family dinner with Matthew and his mother, the day after tomorrow, have you? Ethan seemed to tense for a split second. Oh, right. Of course. I remember the dinner at that restaurant on Park Avenue. Exactly, I confirmed. You don't have other plans, do you? No? Schedule's clear, he said quickly, grabbing a piece of toast, his eyes busy with his phone. I'll have breakfast in the car. I've got a critical morning meeting. A new investor. An investor? I raised an eyebrow. The one you mentioned last week? Yes, the potential is huge. If this goes through, our company's expansion could double next year. His eyes shone, but the sparkle seemed different, almost forced. I nodded. All right, drive safe and don't skip lunch. You're the best wife, he said, kissing me again, this time on the cheek, and rushed out. I paused for a moment. 10 years of marriage, we were like a well-oiled machine, everything running smoothly, but that morning, something felt off, like a tiny grain of sand had gotten into our machine. Ethan seemed A little distant. I shook my head, dismissing the thought. Maybe I was just tired, stressed from organizing this huge party, and Ethan must be stressed about the new investor, too. It was natural. I refocused on my work. I contacted the event planner, confirmed the flow of the evening, called the designer to ensure both Chloe's dress and mine were ready. Mrs. Isabel's dress is ready for pickup, said the voice on the other end. But Miss Chloe's party dress had a small alteration on the shoulder. It won't be ready until late this afternoon. Would you like us to have them delivered, Mom? I thought for a moment. This designer was a socialite favorite, her boutique was in Bergdorf Goodman, and I didn't want even the slightest mistake with Chloe's dress. It's fine, I decided. I'll pick it up myself, this afternoon. I have some errands in that area anyway. Oh, of course, Mrs. Isabelle, we'll be waiting for you. I hung up. At least one problem was solved. I would pick up the dress myself to ensure everything was perfect. Perfection was what I had always clung to in my business, my life, and my marriage. I didn't know that this afternoon, my obsession with perfection would lead me to the biggest crack in my life. The rest of the afternoon was spent in video conferences, my mind completely absorbed in numbers and projections. I forgot the little anxiety I felt in the morning, forgot the strange look in Ethan's eyes, focused on what I could control. Around 4 p.m., I wrapped up my work, changed into a simple but elegant silk blouse and comfortable pants, grabbed my purse, gave a few brief instructions to the housekeeper, and set off. The drive to the luxury department store was smooth. The New York air that afternoon was warm, but my car's AC worked perfectly, and I had soft classical music playing, trying to relax my mind before diving back into party matters. I had no idea that in an hour my orderly world would be shattered. Bergdorf Goodman on Fifth Avenue was the definition of luxury. The polished marble floors reflected the light from crystal chandeliers hanging from the high ceilings. The air inside was cool, and smelled faintly of expensive perfume, a soft jazz melody playing in the background, accompanying the footsteps of people carrying luxury brand shopping bags. This was my world, a familiar and comfortable one. I went straight to the floor where my regular designer's boutique was located. The staff greeted me by name. Good afternoon, Mrs. Isabelle. The dresses are ready. Yours and Miss Chloe's party dress, an attendant said, showing me 2 black garment bags. I asked her to open them. I had to check myself. Chloe's dress, a shimmering silver sequin number, hung beautifully. I checked the seams, especially the newly fixed shoulder part. Perfect, flawless. Thank you. Please pack them up nicely, I said. After paying and leaving with the 2 garment bags, I felt a slight sense of relief, one difficult task completed. I checked my watch. It was barely 5 p.m. Ethan wouldn't be home until late if the investor meeting went well. I decided to grab a coffee before heading home. I didn't want to rush. I needed a moment of rest. I took the escalator down to the first floor. My favorite coffee shop was near the main lobby, but to get there, I had to pass a wide central atrium area. On one side was an exclusive VIP lounge, a place only for premium credit card holders or special guests. Its walls weren't completely enclosed, just bordered by translucent glass partitions with artistic gold frames and a few large marble pillars. I walked leisurely, the heavy garment bags weighing me down slightly. It was then that out of the corner of my eye, through the gap between 2 pillars, I caught the silhouette of someone inside the lounge, a silhouette I knew all too well. His posture, the way he tilted his head, his sturdy shoulders. It was Ethan. My heart beat a little faster. Ethan said he had a meeting with an important investor. Maybe the meeting was being held in that lounge. It made sense. It was a private, comfortable place to talk business. I slowed my pace, a little curious to see who this important investor was. And he wasn't sitting across from someone at a meeting table. He was standing behind a burgundy velvet sofa on which sat a woman. The woman had her back to me. All I could see was a perfectly coiffed modern brown updo, and Ethan wasn't giving a presentation. He was leaning over, his arms wrapped around the woman's shoulders from behind, a tender, possessive hug. Then I saw him dip his head and kiss the woman's neck. Time seemed to stop. The sound of jazz music, the footsteps, everything faded away. The only thing left was the sound of my own heart suddenly beating loudly in my ears. I felt the blood drain from my face, my hands holding the garment bags turning ice cold, as if a giant stone had been dropped into my stomach. My breath caught in my throat. Maybe I was mistaken. Maybe it was someone else, who just looked like him. But I knew the scent of the cologne he used to wear, I knew the watch on his wrist. It was Ethan, my husband. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I couldn't even move. My body was frozen. My first instinct was to run, but my second, stronger instinct kicked in, the instinct of a businesswoman accustomed to gathering data before acting. I took 2 steps back and hid behind a large cold marble pillar. I was safe, out of sight, but I could still see them clearly. Just then, the woman laughed. Her laugh was crisp, arrogant, and self-assured. She tilted her head up, turning her face slightly to respond to Ethan's kiss, and then I saw her face, a face I had seen often on my tablet screen for days while researching outfits, the same face Chloe had shown me from her social media account, well manicured cheekbones, sharp eye makeup, perfectly lined lips. It was Victoria, Chloe's future mother-in-law, our family's future-in-law. A wave of nausea rose in my throat. This wasn't a simple affair. This was a betrayal of the most disgusting level. He wasn't just betraying me, he was betraying his own sister, playing a dangerous game with the family that was about to become part of ours. The sharp pain from before transformed in seconds, solidifying into a block of cold, sharp ice, rage, but not an explosive rage, a quiet rage, a calculated rage. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline. In an almost automatic motion, I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I didn't care if someone saw me hiding behind a pillar like a thief. I opened the camera, made sure the silent mode was on, held my breath, peeked slightly to the side. Click. The photo was a bit blurry, Ethan resting his chin on Victoria's shoulder. I focused, zoomed in a little. Click. Both their faces were clearer now. Victoria had a triumphant smile, one of her hands holding Ethan's, which rested on her chest. Click. Ethan kissing her temple. It still wasn't enough. Photos could be edited. Denied. I switched the camera mode to video, pressed the record button, and recorded for 30 seconds, the longest 30 seconds of my life. I recorded their laughter, the way Ethan whispered something in her ear, the way Victoria caressed my husband's jawline. I put the phone back in my purse. My hands were no longer shaking. My mind was clear, crystal clear. I was not going to confront them. I was not going to make a scene in this department store. That was vulgar. That wasn't my style. Making a scene meant losing. I slowly backed away from the pillar, then turned, and walked swiftly toward the exit, not looking back. I walked through the lobby, through the automatic glass doors, and into the underground parking garage. The air in the garage was stuffy and hot, a stark contrast to the cool air inside. I got into my car, placed the garment bags on the passenger seat, and sat motionlessly behind the wheel for 5 minutes. I didn't cry. I just stared at the concrete wall in front of me, my mind racing, formulating a strategy. Meeting with an investor, such a cliché lie. How long had this been going on? Did Chloe know? Did Matthew know? Was this why Victoria gave Chloe an expensive handbag? Guilt, or just a way to flaunt her power? The engagement party. Everyone would be there this weekend. Ethan's family, Victoria's family. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My eyes were burning. They took me for a fool, thought I was the submissive wife, busy with household matters and my little business. My husband, Ethan, thought he could betray me right under my nose. The socialite, Victoria, thought she could steal my husband while marrying her son into my family. They were so very wrong. I started the car. The engine let out a low growl. This was no longer about a broken marriage. This was about pride. This was about justice. I would let this engagement party proceed. Let them enjoy their charade, smile, be Isabelle, the perfect wife and sister-in-law, but behind hat smile, I would be planning their downfall one by one. I would take away everything I ever gave Ethan, and I would make Victoria lose the social status she was so proud of. I would use this proof, but not now. I would use it at the most opportune moment, the moment most painful for them. I backed the car out and drove out of the underground parking garage into the busy street. My mask was perfectly in place again. I arrived home as the sky began to darken. The house was empty and quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just erupted in my head. I placed the garment bags in the living room carefully, as if they were the most precious objects in the world. For a moment, I stood motional. In the middle of the room, I could feel the tremor in my hands again, no longer the tremor of anger, but the tremor of shock. I wanted to grab the nearest vase and smash it to the floor, to scream, to cry, but I didn't. Winners never lose control, and I, Isabelle, was going to win this battle. My first step was security. I went into my home office, a soundproofed room I had built for important meetings, locked the door, turned on my computer, my hands steady now. I transferred the video and photos from my phone to an encrypted USB drive, then uploaded them to a secure cloud storage service I had set up under a pseudonym and paid for with a virtual credit card. After making sure the copies were safe in 2 places, I deleted the original files from my phone's gallery, even cleared them from the recently deleted folder. No trace should be left. The work was done. I shut down the computer, then walked to the bathroom attached to my office. I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale. My eyes, usually sharp and calculating, now looked hollow and hurt. This was not the face of a winner. This was the face of a victim. I hated what I saw. I splashed cold water on my face again, and again, as if I could wash away the image of Ethan and Victoria from my memory. The pain hadn't disappeared, but I had pushed it into the deepest part of my mind, into an iron box. I locked it there. Now I was ready. I left my office and went back to being Isabelle, the wife. I checked on the dinner preparations, even though I knew Ethan would say he'd already eaten out. I drew a hot bath in our bedroom, changed into comfortable silk pajamas, sat on the living room sofa, and turned on the TV. But I wasn't watching it. I waited. Around 11 p.m., I heard the sound of his car pulling into the garage. The front door opened. Oni, you're still up. Ethan's voice sounded tired. I turned, displaying the rehearsed smile, waiting for you. How was the meeting? He walked toward me, sighing deeply as he loosened his tie, sat down beside me, but not too close. Exhausting, really exhausting. Those investors are tough, but I think we're almost there. Investors? I asked in my usual tone. The ones from Singapore? He looked startled for a moment. No, these are new ones from Dubai. The potential is massive. I can't say much yet, but this is big, Isabelle. Really big. He was lying so smoothly. I could see the lie in his eyes, which avoided mine. He looked tired. Of course, having an affair must be exhausting, I thought. You must be worn out, I said softly, getting up and taking his briefcase. Have you had dinner? I saved your favorite seafood chowder. I ate during the meeting a while ago, he said quickly. But thanks, honey. You're the most thoughtful. He caressed my cheek. His touch, which once always comforted me, now felt cold and repulsive. I had to resist the urge to pull away. I smiled. He hot bath is ready. Go take a shower. I'll make you some hot ginger tea. As he trudged toward the bedroom, I watched him. His back, which once seemed so strong, now looked like a coward's. I made the ginger tea, and when he came out of the shower looking fresher, I handed it to him. We sat in silence for a moment. So, I began, my voice light. I picked up Chloe's dress earlier. It's beautiful. I'm even more excited about the engagement party. Yeah, Ethan said, sipping his tea. Chloe will love it. It also got me thinking about our future-in-law. I continued, watching his face closely, even though I haven't met her in person. From Chloe's stories and the pictures, she seems like an incredible woman, don't you think? Very classy. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly, very slightly, almost imperceptibly, but I saw it. Yes, she's a very influential woman. Ethan chose his words carefully. She's into business and has a lot of connections. Matthew is lucky to have a mother like her, and Chloe is lucky to be joining that family. Oh, I see. I feigned interest. Oh, it will be good for Matthew's business. I heard his startup is booming this time. Ethan looked at me. There was a strange glint in his eyes. Caution or pride. Of course, Victoria is very supportive of her son. She has a sharp business sense, just like you. I praised him. Why? Oh, have a sharp sense for that new investor, don't you? He smiled, a fake smile in response to my fake smile. Of course, we'll see. He finished his tea and stood up. I'm really tired, Isabelle. I'm going to bed. Sure, get some rest. He kissed my forehead, a bland kiss that felt like poison, then went into the bedroom. I was left alone on the sofa in silence. This night of hypocrisy was just beginning. I heard his steady breathing from the room. After making sure he was sound asleep, I got up, didn't go to our bedroom, went back to my office, locked the door, sat in my comfortable chair. I wasn't going to sleep that night. My mind was working. The video and photos were proof of emotional and physical betrayal. It was enough for a divorce, but it wasn't enough to destroy them, wasn't enough to repay this pain. Victoria was a socialite. Status was everything to her. Ethan was an executive. Reputation was everything to him. I had to attack their weakest point, and Ethan had just given me a clue. New investors, business sense. I remembered Ethan complaining at the funding problems of Matthew's business a few months ago. Poor Matthew. He needs a fresh injection of capital, he had said then. And now suddenly Matthew's business was booming, and Ethan had a mysterious new investor. A terrible suspicion began to form. I opened my laptop, search the internet, opened my private contact list, a list of names I only used for business emergencies, lawyers, forensic accountants, and a private investigator. His name was Harris. He was the best in his field, very expensive, but highly discreet, and the results were always accurate. I had once used his services to investigate the background of a potential business partner, who seemed too good to be true, and Harris had saved me from a huge loss. I picked up my second phone, a burner phone I kept only for sensitive communications, and typed a short, encrypted message to Harris. Harris, it's Isabelle. I need your help. Top priority, maximum discretion. Call me on this number at exactly 9:00 a.m., not a minute sooner, not a minute later. I sent the message, then leaned back in my chair. The cold air from the AC pricked my skin, but I didn't feel it. A fire had already started burning inside me. Ethan might be dreaming peacefully in our room, perhaps dreaming of Victoria, but I, in my office, was planning a nightmare for both of them. At 9 a.m., exactly as the clock struck the hour, my burner phone rang. The screen showed no name, just an unknown number. Mrs. Isabelle, it's Harris. How can I help you? His voice was neutral and professional. I want you to investigate two people, my husband Ethan and a woman named Victoria. I got straight to the point. I want to know everything about them. Everything. Absolutely everything. I emphasized. When did this relationship start? Where do they meet? Their daily schedules. But there's something more important. Harris, I want you to follow the money. I paused, making sure no one was around. Ethan runs one of my subsidiaries. I suspect he's embezzling funds from the company, and I also suspect he's channeling those funds into the business of Victoria's son, Matthew. The company name is Synergy Startups. I heard soft typing on the other end. I'll need initial data, full names, any account numbers, office addresses, company details, Harris said. I'll send them to your secure email now. I said, sending an encrypted email I had prepared since dawn. The content was all the personal data I could find on Ethan, Victoria, and Matthew, the details of the company accounts Ethan managed, and of course, the video and photos from the department store yesterday. Received, Harris said after a moment. This is clear. How much time will you need? I asked. For the money trail and proof of embezzlement, if it exists, I'll need 3 business days. For the behavioral patterns, I can give you daily reports. I'll deploy a team to tail them both. Good. Do it, I said. I'll pay double your usual rate. I want this fast, accurate, and undetectable. Understood, Mom. I'm on it. The call ended. The investigation machine had started to run. Now it was my turn to act. The next few days were an icy hell. I had to live my life as if nothing had happened. I attended business meetings, smiled at clients, gave instructions to employees. At home, I was the perfect wife. I still prepared Athens' clothes, still asked about his day. He, on the other hand, seemed increasingly busy, always coming home late, using the excuse of those investors. He didn't realize I knew about his lies. Chloe called me almost every day, fussing over small wedding details. Isabelle, do you think lilies are better than white roses? Oh, Isabelle, Victoria wants us to use a different wedding planner. What do I do? Calm down, Chloe. Do what you want. It's your event. I would say patiently, though inside I wanted to scream. I even had to do a video call with Victoria to discuss the event organization. Her voice on the call was arrogant and controlling, treating me like a secretary, not a future in-law. Isabelle, make sure the wine served is a vintage from the 90s. The guests have refined tastes, she said with a condescending tone. Of course, Victoria. I'll make sure of it, I replied in a neutral tone. Enjoy it while you can, I thought. And the worst part, the money. Harris and his team of forensic accountants found the trail. Ethan had created a series of fake invoices, marketing consulting costs, market research costs, entertainment expenses for VIP clients, a total of $3 million over the past 6 months, and the money didn't go directly to Victoria's account. That would have been too stupid even for Ethan. The money, as I suspected, went to Matthew's business, but not directly. On the third day, the first report from Harris arrived. I read it on my tablet inside my locked office, my heart pounding. Harris had confirmed everything. Their affair had been going on for 11 months, since the first month Chloe and Matthew started dating officially. They met at least 3 times a week in a luxury apartment rented under Ethan's company name, a guest apartment for business partners. In hotels, in VIP lounges. She used my husband, used his position to steal money from my company, and fund her own son's business. They weren't just an adulterous couple, they were partners in crime. The pain in my heart was now mixed with a burning fury. They had not only betrayed me, they had stolen from me. This was the proof I needed. This wasn't just a matter of infidelity, it was a criminal act of corporate embezzlement. I wouldn't turn it over to the police, that would be too messy and would also damage my own company's reputation. I had a more elegant way, a more painful way. I would take away everything. The next morning, I didn't go to the office. I went to my personal banker, Mrs. Davis, a middle-aged woman who had managed my finances since my first success. "Good morning, Mrs. Davis," I greeted, sitting in her plush, quiet office. "Good morning, Mrs. Isabelle. What can I do for you?" "You've come without an appointment," she said kindly. "I want to restructure my assets," I said in the business-like tone I always used, immediately explaining my plan. I wanted to move all my liquid assets, cash, funds, deposits from joint accounts, which although in my name, Ethan had authorization for, to my main holding company's account, of which I was the sole 100% owner. Then I wanted to sell all the stock portfolios we held under joint names. The proceeds from the sale would also go to the holding company's account. Mrs. Davis raised an eyebrow. It was a large-scale movement of funds. His is a rather drastic move, Mrs. Isabelle. Is there a problem? Just a precaution for the company's financial security, I said, and Mrs. Davis nodded. The reason was plausible. Understood, Mom. I will prepare the documents. What should we do with the operating account of the subsidiary Mr. Ethan manages? Shall we freeze it as well? I thought for a moment. No, I said, don't freeze it. Keep it active. Mrs. Davis looked confused, but I continued. I want to withdraw almost all the funds, leave only a minimum balance for basic monthly operations, just for employee salaries and the electricity bill, nothing more. And I want to receive an instant notification on my phone for every transaction that leaves that account, no matter the amount. Mrs. Davis now understood. She asked no more questions. She was a professional. I will execute this immediately, Mrs. Isabelle. Within 24 hours, all your assets will be secure. Thank you, Mrs. Davis. I left the bank feeling a strange lightness. I had just secured my fortress, had just emptied the chest Ethan used to fund his betrayal. I checked the house documents, just as I remembered. This house was bought and paid for in full with my own sweat and tears long before I married Ethan. His name was on some utility bills, but on the property deed, only my name, Isabelle, was listed. He had nothing. The company he ran was mine. The house he lived in was mine. The luxury car he drove was a company asset. The bank account he used for his luxuries had just been completely emptied by me. My husband, Ethan, was now a bankrupt man. He just didn't know it yet. And I let it be. I let him and Victoria enjoy their remaining days, let them busy themselves preparing a lavish engagement party for their children. I even sent a large, expensive orchid arrangement to Victoria's house as a gesture of friendship between future in-laws. Let them laugh, let them feel victorious. I would wait until the engagement day, the day when all their prestigious families gathered, the day they shone brightest, and right at that moment, I would turn off the lights. The exclusive fine dining restaurant on the Upper East Side was the kind of place that didn't advertise its name at the entrance. It was an open secret among New York's elite, and to book one of its private rooms, you had to be a member or at least known by the owner. Victoria, of course, chose this place. We arrived separately. Ethan, Chloe, and I arrived together. Matthew and Victoria were already waiting inside. When we entered the private room with its dark wood-paneled walls, dim lighting, and a long, perfectly set table, Victoria stood up to greet us. She was the definition of a well-preserved middle-aged socialite. Her body was wrapped in an emerald green dress that I guessed cost a year's salary of one of my employees. Her brown hair was swept up in a flawless updo, and the diamond earrings in her ears caught the light. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes were cold, assessing. Isabelle, we finally meet, she greeted, her voice smooth as silk, bringing her cheek to mine for a light, empty, cold embrace. The scent of her perfume, a mix of expensive jasmine and tobacco, almost made me nauseous. It was the same scent I had faintly detected on Ethan's jacket weeks ago. "I'm delighted to meet you in person, Victoria," I replied, making my voice as friendly as possible, returning her smile, my best fake smile. "My apologies. My schedule has been incredibly busy lately." "Oh, of course," she said with a slight tone of disdain. "Why? Our little business must take up a lot of your time." I just smiled. "My little business, the one that's paying for your lover's lifestyle right now, and funding yours too." "Ethan, you look radiant." Victoria turned to my husband, cooing at her secret lover right in front of me. "You too, Victoria." "Always stunning," Ethan replied. My stomach churned, the way they called each other by their first names. No Mrs. or Mrs. They weren't even trying to hide it in front of me. They thought I was too stupid, too naive. Ethan sat across from me next to Victoria. I sat between Chloe and Matthew, a perfect landscape. I could see both of them clearly. Chloe and Matthew, on the other hand, looked so happy. They were a pair of young lovers. They didn't know a shark was swimming under their table, busy discussing their honeymoon plans, laughing and exchanging glances. "So, Matthew," I initiated the conversation, diverting my attention from the two fraudsters in front of me. "Oh, is your startup going? I heard you received a large injection of funds. Congratulations." Matthew's face lit up instantly. "Yes, Isabelle. Thank you. Thank God. A venture capital firm from Singapore suddenly took an interest. My mother handled everything." He smiled proudly at his mother. "Oh, of course," Victoria interjected, waving her hand elegantly. "It's connections in this world that matter. Matthew is a brilliant boy, but brilliance is not enough without the right doors." She looked at me. "You would understand, Isabelle. Running a business is hard, especially a small one." Again, that veiled insult. I took a sip of my water. "You're right. Connections are everything. But maintaining the trust of those connections is even more important, isn't it, Ethan?" I looked directly at my husband. Ethan, who was about to drink his water, almost choked. He coughed quietly, trying to cover it up with his napkin. "Why yes, of course. Trust," he said, his voice a little hoarse. Victoria watched me, her eyes narrowing for a fraction of a second. She was sizing me up. The main course, foie gras, was served. I played with it with my fork, having suddenly lost my appetite. "I heard from Ethan that you have a big expansion project at your company," Victoria asked Ethan, her tone not that of a woman asking her secret lover in front of his wife, but of a business partner. "Yes." Ethan regained his composure and cleared his throat. "We're looking for new investors. The potential is very good. It will be a big leap." "New investors, the same old theater. And what about you, Victoria?" I asked, filling my voice with false admiration. "I'm truly impressed. Raising Matthew to be so successful all by yourself, running your own affairs, with such vast connections, it must be so hard." Victoria beamed this time, her smile genuine. She loved being praised. "Oh, it's nothing," she said. "Anything for Matthew." "No," I leaned forward a little. "I'm serious. You're an extraordinary woman to be able to maintain so many things at once, while raising Matthew." I emphasized the word maintain, softly, almost imperceptibly, but it was enough for the fork in Ethan's hand to clatter silently against his plate, enough for the smile on Victoria's face to freeze. There was a silence. Even Chloe and Matthew, who had been chatting animatedly, felt the change in the room's temperature, and stopped talking, looking at us. "Maintain what, Isabelle?" Chloe asked, confused. I laughed lightly, breaking the tension. Ain't in her appearance, of course. Look, at her age, Victoria still looks like Matthew's older sister, maintaining her reputation, maintaining her business, right, Mom? I, who am younger, sometimes feel overwhelmed." Victoria shot me a sharp look. She knew I wasn't talking about appearances, forcing a dry laugh. "What are you talking about, Isabelle? There are no secrets, just discipline and investment." Ethan was quick to add, trying to change the subject. "Investing in yourself, right, Victoria? Like healthcare." "Exactly," I said, smiling sweetly at my husband. Investment is important. You have to choose carefully where you invest. Make sure the investment is not fraudulent or embezzled by others." This time, Victoria choked on her water, coughing a little. "Are you okay, Mom?" Matthew asked, concerned, patting her back. "I'm fine, son." Victoria said, her voice choked, glaring at me, with fury behind her forced smile. It just went down the wrong pipe. The dinner continued in a tense atmosphere. Ethan and Victoria became quieter, no longer interacting much. Ethan busied himself asking Matthew about the technical aspects of his startup, while Victoria was absorbed in her phone. I, on the contrary, became very cheerful. I talked to Chloe about her wedding dress, praised Matthew's intelligence, playing my role as the perfect sister-in-law and future co-in-law flawlessly. When we finally stood up to say goodbye, Victoria hugged me again. See you at the engagement party, Isabelle. She whispered in my ear, her hug tight like a snake's. I hope there are no unpleasant surprises. Of course, I whispered back, my smile still in place. I'm looking forward to it too. It will be an unforgettable event. In the car on the way home, Ethan's silence was 1,000 words. Usually, he would play music or talk about the traffic, but that night, he concentrated on driving, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. Is something wrong, honey? I asked softly, feigning concern. Why? Oh, seem tense. Are the investors causing trouble again? He turned to look at me. In the dim light of the street lamps, I could see a thin layer of sweat on his temples. Isabelle, he said, when you told Victoria earlier about maintaining many things, what did you mean? I pretended to think. I meant what I said, maintaining her looks, maintaining her business. Why? Did I say something wrong? He looked at me for a long time, trying to find something in my eyes, a lie, an accusation, but I just looked back at him, with an innocent and confused expression. Finally, he sighed and turned his focus back to the road. No, forget it. I must be tired. You must be, I said, patting his arm. You work too hard. He gently pulled his hand away with the excuse that he needed to change gears. I took my hand back and leaned back in my seat, smiling in the dark. He was scared. He was paranoid. Good. The game had just begun. 2 days after that tense dinner, I dedicated the entire day to the next phase of my plan, working from home with the excuse that I had to meet the deadlines for quarterly reports and locking myself in my office. On the immaculate mahogany desk in front of me lay all the ammunition Harris and his team had gathered, printed neatly and filed in separate folders. Harris' report was very comprehensive. There were surveillance photos of Ethan and Victoria entering the lobby of the apartment they had rented, photos of them dining in other private restaurants, this time much more intimate, holding hands across the table. And the department store photos I had taken were now printed in high quality. And then there was the financial part. This was the masterpiece. Harris had created a simple but deadly flowchart. First box, JM Company, my subsidiary that Ethan ran. Outgoing arrow, marked a fund flow of $3 million. Second box, a series of fake invoices for Strategic Consulting Services Asia Pacific. Third box, a shell company in Singapore, Vantage Capital Private Limited. Outgoing arrow from Vantage Capital marked a fund flow of $2.9 million after deducting a ghost management fee. Fourth box, Matthew's company, Synergy Startups, with the description, Eid Investment, Series A Premium. Everything was there, account numbers, transaction dates, copies of the forged contracts signed by Ethan, copies of the investment agreement between Vantage Capital and Matthew's company. Ethan had used the company's digital signature. I had granted him to approve all of this. He was stupid, overconfident, never thinking I would check in such detail, assuming I was too busy with my little business. Victoria, on the other hand, was very cunning. Her name didn't appear on any of these documents. Legally, she was clean. Morally, she was the mastermind. I looked at the pile of papers. Matthew, that kid was the key. I felt a pang of doubt. He sincerely loved Chloe, was proud of his business, adored his mother. This gift I was about to give him would destroy those 3 illusions at once. He would find out that his fiancée was the sister of the man sleeping with his mother, that the business he was so proud of was built on stolen money, that his mother was a fraud and a mistress. It was cruel, I knew it, but it was necessary. Chloe didn't deserve to marry the son of the fraudster who destroyed her family. She needed to be saved from this family. And Victoria had to be destroyed by the person she loved most. Financial and social ruin wasn't enough for her. She had to lose her son's respect. That was the fitting punishment. Matthew was a victim, but in war, there are always innocent casualties. I made my decision. I wouldn't send him everything, wouldn't send the intimate photos, not yet. That was too visceral, would make him emotional, and he would probably confront his mother immediately, with the cunning Victoria likely able to twist the facts, claiming I had photoshopped them out of jealousy. I had to attack his logic first. Matthew was a startup entrepreneur. He understood numbers. I selected the financial documents, the flowchart created by Harris, copies of the fake invoices from Ethan's company, and a copy of the investment agreement from Vantage Capital to Matthew's company. Those two documents placed side by side said everything. Ethan's name was on the outgoing invoice, Matthew's company name on the incoming investment agreement, and the shell company in Singapore was listed as the intermediary in both. Matthew was smart enough to connect the dots to realize that his mysterious investor was his future brother-in-law legally channeling money from his for future sister-in-law's company. I thought of this as a logic bomb. I would plant a lethal seed of doubt. I put the documents in a large A4 size brown envelope, no sender's address, no note, just the cold hard documents. Next, the delivery. I called Harris on my burner phone. Harris, I need a package delivered to Matthew's office at Synergy Startups. It has to be in his hands today, only his hands, not his secretaries or assistants. That can be arranged. Mom, Harris said, one of my men is watching him in his office lobby now. He's in a meeting. Good. I will leave the package at the reception desk in my building's lobby in 30 minutes under the name, for Mr. Harris guest. Pick it up then. I wouldn't use a regular courier service. I would use one of Harris' men, with cash payment and no digital trail. I left the envelope in the lobby exactly as I said. 15 minutes later, checking my office's security cameras connected to the lobby, I saw a stranger in a delivery man's jacket who didn't take off his helmet, pick it up and leave immediately. Now, I waited. That was the hardest part, waiting for the fuse to burn. Matthew's head was pounding. The meeting with his development team had been long, their app having hit a major bug just before launch. He rubbed his temples and walked back to his simple desk in the corner of their open plan office. Mr. Matthew, his secretary said, courier dropped this off earlier. He said it was highly personal and to be given directly to you. Matthew frowned at the large thick brown envelope. No sender. Who's it from? The courier didn't say, sir, just asked for a receipt. The secretary replied. Matthew took the envelope, intrigued. Maybe it was tender documents from a new client. He opened it. Inside there was no cover letter, just a stack of papers. The first page was a flowchart, JM Company, his future brother-in-law Ethan's company, Vantage Capital, Synergy Startups, his company. His heart started to pound. He looked at the next pages, fake invoices for consulting services worth millions of dollars, signed by Ethan, then the investment agreement document from Vantage Capital Private Limited investing in his company. He compared the two documents. The name of the intermediary company in Singapore was exactly the same. Matthew felt nauseous, opening his laptop with slightly trembling hands to Google EJM Company. The first result was a subsidiary of the Isabelle Group, owned by Isabelle's company. He felt the blood drain from his face. It couldn't be the investor his mother was so proud of, the venture capital that allowed his company to hire the best talent. The money he had used to build his dream was stolen money embezzled by Ethan from his wife's company. What have you done, Mom? He whispered to himself, remembering how easily his mother had secured that investor. Leave it to me, son. I have connections, she had said. Then he remembered how strange Ethan was at dinner a few days ago, how nervous his future brother-in-law was, how strange Isabelle's words were. Matthew felt like the stupidest person in the world. He had worked day and night, proud of his achievements, only to find he was just a pawn in his mother's and her secret lover's dirty game. Secret lover, the thought hit him hard. Ethan and his mother, it was insane. But why would Ethan risk embezzling millions from his wife and giving it to Matthew's company? There was no business reason for it. If the reason wasn't business, then it was personal. Matthew looked at the pile of documents in front of him. He wasn't angry, just empty. His world, once bright and full of hope, suddenly turned dark and dirty. He didn't confront his mother, didn't call Chloe. He folded the documents back and put them in his briefcase, knowing he had to think to find out how deep this rot went. That afternoon, my burner phone vibrated with a message from Harris P. Package delivered directly to the target. He seemed very disturbed after reading it, has cancelled all his afternoon meetings, and returned to his apartment. I just read the message, feeling no victory, only a chill. The fuse was lit. The time bomb now in Matthew's hands. I just had to wait for Chloe's engagement day, the day all the secrets would explode. That day, the day of Chloe and Matthew's engagement, our house was in chaos from early morning. Chloe had stayed over, and the makeup artist had arrived at dawn. I was running back and forth making sure everything was perfect. Chloe's dress hung elegantly, breakfast was ready, and the wedding car, unnecessary, but insisted on by Victoria, was being decorated in front of the house. I also got my makeup done, choosing a simple but very elegant champagne-colored dress of the finest silk. I wanted to look perfect, serene, classy, the supportive sister-in-law, the faithful wife. That was the mask I was wearing today. Anne, on the other hand, looked nervous. He was impeccably dressed in the same custom-made suit as Matthew, but couldn't stand still, pacing the living room and constantly checking his phone. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked, adjusting his tie as gently as possible. His hands were cold. "Nothing," he said too quickly. "I'm just nervous for Chloe. It's a big event, lots of important guests." "Important guests or new investors?" I whispered. He looked at me instantly. "What do you mean?" I laughed softly. "I mean, important guests from those new investors might come. It's good for the company's image." "Why are you so tense?" He forced a smile. "Yeah, you're right. I just want everything to go smoothly." "It will," I assured him. "I've checked everything." In my mind, I knew he wasn't nervous about Chloe. He was nervous about his game with Victoria, about the dinner a few days ago, afraid I knew something. "You don't know anything, Ethan. You don't know what I'm going to serve tonight yet." The event was held in the grand ballroom of one of New York's most prestigious five-star hotels. Victoria didn't joke around with ostentation. The lobby was filled with imported flowers, champagne flowed freely, and the guests were faces I recognized from business magazines and society columns. Ethan, Chloe, and I walked in. Chloe looked like a princess, pretty nervous but very happy, knowing nothing. A pang of guilt stabbed me for a moment. I was about to ruin her happy day, but I had to. It was better to be destroyed now than to live in a lie for a lifetime. Victoria and Matthew greeted us at the end. Rance. Victoria was radiant in a tight-fitting fiery red dress, diamond and ruby jewelry adorning her neck and wrists. She was the queen of the night. She hugged Chloe, then hugged me. "Isabelle, you look beautiful," she praised, but her eyes were full of triumph, thinking she had won, that I was the stupid wife who knew nothing. "You look much more stunning, Victoria," I replied with a smile. "Red is definitely your color." Then I looked at Matthew. The boy was pale, very pale, with slight dark circles under his eyes, forcing a smile when he shook our hands, his eyes empty, avoiding his mother's gaze and barely looking at Chloe. I knew the envelope had done its job. "Are you okay, Matthew?" I asked softly while Chloe was busy greeting other guests. "You don't look well." Matthew looked at me, his eyes a mixture of pain, confusion, and gratitude, seemingly having realized where the envelope came from. "I'm just a little nervous, Isabelle," he whispered. "Don't worry," I said, giving him a silent pat on the arm. "Everything will be fine. Everything will become clear tonight." He seemed surprised by my choice of words, but I quickly moved to join other guests. Ethan and Victoria, of course, stuck together immediately, not physically, but always within 15 feet of each other, laughing with guests, introducing each other, acting like the heads of two prestigious families soon to be united by their children's marriage. They were the perfect host couple. I watched them from afar, sipping my drink. It was disgusting how comfortable they were in their lives. The event began. The master of ceremonies started with sweet words, speeches from family representatives. As Chloe's guardian, Ethan went on stage, speaking eloquently about how much he loved his sister, how happy he was that Chloe had found a good man like Matthew, how honored his family was to join Victoria's prestigious family. I almost applauded his performance, a brilliant actor. Finally, it was time for Matthew and Chloe to exchange rings. They stood on a small, beautifully decorated stage, the spotlight shining on them, soft romantic music playing. "Matthew," Chloe said, her voice trembling with emotion, "I promise to be your partner." Matthew slipped the ring on Chloe's finger, his hand trembling slightly. Now it was Matthew's turn. He held the ring for Chloe, looking at her, then his eyes drifted to his mother sitting in the front row, looking at him proudly, then to Ethan standing not far from his mother. Matthew fell silent. The music stopped. The mic looked confused. Matthew, Chloe whispered, her smile beginning to fade. Matthew swallowed hard, looking like he was going to be sick, but finally slid the ring on. He did it. The audience applauded, Ethan and Victoria smiling in relief. The mic took the microphone again, and now, as a special surprise from her beloved sister-in-law, Isabelle, let's watch a video dedication of love for the future bride and groom together. He lights in the ballroom dimmed. It was time. My heart was beating so hard I thought the person next to me could hear it. The huge, nearly 30-foot wide projection screen behind the stage lit up. I had prepared this perfectly, giving the wedding planner a USB drive that morning, saying it was a video of Chloe and Matthew's childhood memories I had professionally edited, which they gladly accepted. The video started exactly as I said, adorable pictures of Chloe's childhood, then Matthew's teenage years, then them together, a sweet love song playing in the background. Chloe looked touched, leaning on Matthew's shoulder, while Matthew just stared at the screen rigidly. Victoria and Ethan smiled contentedly, thinking this was a sincere dedication from me. The video was 3 minutes long. At 2 minutes and 50 seconds, as the song reached its climax, the screen suddenly filled with static. The audience murmured, the technician flustered, excuse us, it seems we have a little technical problem, the mic said nervously. Then the screen lit up again, but what appeared was no longer Chloe and Matthew's romantic photos. It was a video recording, taken from behind a pillar at a slightly low angle, in the VIP lounge of a luxury department store, a man with a familiar back, Ethan, tenderly hugging a woman from behind. The audience fell silent, the romantic music cutting out, leaving only quiet. Then the woman turned, her face clearly caught by the camera. Victoria. Gasps erupted from some guests. Ethan froze in his chair, the phone in his hand dropping to the floor with a thud. Victoria's face, previously glowing, turned as white as paper. What is this? Someone at the next table whispered. The screen didn't stop. The video replayed in a loop, Ethan hugging Victoria, then switched to photos, the ones I had taken with my phone. Clearer close-ups, Ethan kissing Victoria's neck, Victoria holding Ethan's hand on her chest with a triumphant smile, Ethan whispering something in her ear, them laughing together. Underneath the screen, my video editor had added a simple line of text in an elegant font, congratulations on the new investor, Ethan, and congratulations on the connections, Victoria. That text was the final nail in their coffin. The whole ballroom fell silent instantly, 100% silent. You could hear a pin drop. Hundreds of pairs of eyes, from business partners, high society friends, relatives, fixed on the two people whose photos were on the screen. Hen turned to the stage. Matthew just stared at the screen, his face expressionless as if he had lost all feeling. Chloe beside him took much longer to realize, frowning at the screen, confused, that's Ethan and Victoria. What is this video, Isabelle? She asked innocently. Then she understood, seeing the picture of the kiss, looking at Matthew, at his mother in the front row, at her brother. No, Chloe whispered, it can't be. Clutching her chest, her breath catching in her throat, her eyes widening in horror, then, exactly as I had predicted, she fainted, her body slumping to the stage floor. Chloe! Matthew shouted, finally snapping out of his rigidity, and kneeling beside his fiancée. Chaos erupted. Following Chloe's collapse, the silence in the ballroom broke with a roar. Oh my God, Chloe, call a doctor. What happened? What were those pictures? Guests began to stand, whisper, point. The embarrassed technician finally managed to turn off the projector. The screen went black, but the image of those photos was seared into everyone's mind. Ethan was the first to move, but he didn't run to the stage to help his sister. He ran towards me, his face red with fury, his eyes wild with rage and overwhelming humiliation. Isabelle, he screamed, what have you done? Are you insane? He grabbed my arm, his nails digging into my skin. I looked at him coldly, feeling no pain. Let go of me, Ethan. You've ruined everything. You've ruined our family. You've even ruined your own sister. He yelled, his voice trembling. I laughed, a dry, quiet laugh. I've ruined it. Or you, who slept with your future-in-law. You, who stole money from my company to fund that woman's son. He was speechless. You knew about the money. I know everything, I whispered. Meanwhile, on the other side of the room, Victoria was playing her part, running to the stage not to help Chloe, but to snatch the microphone from the bewildered mic. Everyone, please calm down. Calm down. Victoria shrieked, her voice loud and shaken. This is a misunderstanding. It's slander. Those photos are photoshopped. They aren't real. She looked at the crowd of guests, her face pleading. This is the work of my business competitors, or that woman. Her finger pointing directly at me. Isabelle was jealous of our happiness, jealous that our families were uniting. The guests turned to look at me, now the center of attention, trapped by Ethan's grip. Mom, a thundering voice interrupted Victoria's self-defense. It was Matthew. He had stood up. Chloe was being attended to by some relatives who had brought her down from the stage, and Matthew now stood alone on the stage staring at his mother. Stop it, Mom, Matthew said, his voice low but heard clearly throughout the room. Matthew, honey, you have to believe me. It's all a lie. Victoria tried to approach him. A lie. Matthew laughed, a laugh more painful than crying. What's a lie, Mom? The photos, or this? Matthew reached into his suit pocket, pulling out a folded piece of paper. Harris Flockhart, unfolding it. Is this a lie, too? You said you had connections, an investor from Singapore? But what's the truth? The investor is Ethan, my future brother-in-law. The room fell silent again. This was the second bomb. Victoria froze. Ethan released my arm, looking at Matthew in terror. Matthew pointed at Ethan, stole $3 million from his wife's company, from Isabel's company. He funneled the money through a shell company, and gave it to me. Matthew crumpled the paper. I built my business, was so incredibly proud, and it turns out I built it on stolen money, on Isabel's sweat and blood, stolen by my mother and her secret lover. Matthew, watch your words, Victoria shouted, her pride wounded. Watch my words. I'm sick of all this hypocrisy. I'm sick of your lifestyle. I'm sick of watching you manipulate everyone, he said, looking at his mother with an expression of deep hatred and disappointment. You're disgusting. Then he did something I didn't expect. He pulled the engagement ring from his pocket, the one he had just put on Chloe's finger, and threw it, not at Chloe, but at his mother's face. Thwack! The ring hit Victoria's cheek. I don't want to be part of this family, Matthew said, looking at Chloe, who had just regained consciousness and was sitting in a chair beside the stage. I'm sorry, Chloe. You deserve better than this. And to Ethan, you're a coward. With that, Matthew turned around, walked down from the stage, straight through the crowd that parted for him, out of the ballroom, and didn't look back. The engagement party was officially over. Victoria stood paralyzed on the stage, holding her cheek where the ring had hit her, her makeup starting to run, looking old, defeated, and humiliated in front of hundreds of pairs of eyes that regarded her with a mixture of pie and disgust. Ethan, beside me, was shattered. He had lost everything in an instant, his reputation, his sister, his wife, his money. He looked at me, his eyes now filled with despair instead of anger. Isabelle, he whispered, please don't. I looked at him for a long time, then turned, and walked away from him, through the whispering guests towards the exit where Matthew had just disappeared. I didn't need to say anything more, didn't need to shout or curse, my work here was done. I left them both in that ballroom, Ethan and Victoria, two fraudsters who now had to face the wreckage of their own making, amidst the lavish party they had designed to celebrate their victory. Ironically, as I walked out of the ballroom into the silent hotel lobby, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe a sigh of relief. I got home, feeling no victory, no euphoria, just an overwhelming, bone-deep exhaustion. The adrenaline that had sustained me, that had allowed me to stand tall and smile through the storm, had receded, leaving an empty ache. The house felt too big, too quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos, shouting, and stares at the hotel. I dropped my purse on the table, kicked off my heels, feeling the relief of my feet on the cold marble floor, and walked to the master bathroom. I didn't turn on the lights, letting only the moonlight filter in through the window, and looked at myself in the large mirror. My makeup was still perfect, the champagne dress still elegant, my mask still in place. Slowly, I took it all off, wiping away the lipstick I had used to smile falsely at Victoria, removing the eyeliner that had made my eyes look cold and serene, washing my face as if I could scrub away all the filth that had clung to me in recent weeks. I stepped into the hot shower, letting the water run for me for a long time, as if it could wash away the remnants of expensive perfume, the party, and the betrayal. I wanted to feel clean, to feel like myself again. After the shower, I put on my most comfortable loungewear, a loose cotton t-shirt and pajama pants, leaving my hair to hang down my back. I went to the kitchen and made myself a cup of chamomile tea, then sat on the living room sofa, no TV, no music, just sitting in the dark, waiting. I knew he would come, he had nowhere else to go. The wall clock ticked, the night turning into early morning. At 3:30 a.m., I heard the sound of his car, its engine hesitant as it pulled into the garage, then silence. He must have been sitting in the car for several minutes, gathering his courage. Finally, I heard the key in the front door, the door opened slowly, and Ethan entered. He looked 1,000 times worse than when I left him at the hotel. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his tie loose, his shirt untucked, his eyes red and swollen, swaying slightly, the smell of alcohol strong even from meters away. He must have stopped at a bar first. He saw me sitting in dark, my silhouette like a judge awaiting him. Isabelle. His voice was hoarse, no longer angry, his rage replaced by total defeat. He walked slowly towards me, his steps heavy, then, about 3 feet from me, his legs seemed to give out, and he collapsed to his knees on the expensive Persian rug. "I'm sorry, Isabelle," he whispered. "Please forgive me." He reached for my hand. I pulled it back. "I was wrong. I was an idiot," he said, tears beginning to stream down his cheeks, not fake tears, but tears of remorse, or perhaps fear. "It was all Victoria's fault," he said, and the drama began. He seduced me, Isabelle. She kept making advances. The money idea was hers. She said it would just be a loan, said you were too busy to notice. I listened in silence. "She set me up," he sobbed. "You know I'm weak, easily influenced, but believe me, Isabelle, I love you. My love is only for you." I almost laughed. How cliché. "I will fix everything," he said, his voice growing more desperate. "I'll leave her, swear I'll pay back the money, kneel at clothes feet, do anything. Please, Isabelle, don't leave me. I can't live without you." He crawled forward, trying to hug my knees. It was then that I finally spoke, my voice calm, cold as ice. "Are you finished?" Ethan looked up, startled by my emotionless voice. "Isabelle." I stood up, walking past him, as if he wasn't there, and turned on a floor lamp on a corner table, the room now bright enough to see the ruin on his face. "You said you'd pay back the money." I asked, my back to him. "How? You don't have a single cent." "I'll work. I'll find a way." "Where will you work, Ethan?" I interrupted, my voice still as calm as ever, sharp and unyielding. I turned to face him. "That company is mine, and you are officially fired. Your termination letter has been on your desk for 3 days. His face went from pleading to ashen white. "What? And you said you couldn't live without me." I said. "You're wrong. You can't live without my money." I walked to the coffee table, where a thick brown folder I had prepared that afternoon lay waiting. I picked it up. "I'm not interested in your drama. I don't care who seduced whom. You're a grown man. You made your choices." I threw the folder on the floor right in front of him. "And this is my decision." His hands trembled violently as he picked up the folder, opening it and pulling out the contents. First page, divorce papers, fast-tracked, and non-negotiable, filed on grounds of adultery and fraud. Second page, a bundle of evidence copies, the department store photos, a copy of video, and most damningly, the flow card of the $3 million with copies of the fake invoices he had signed. Third page, a copy of our prenuptial agreement, one that clearly stated all assets, companies, and properties I owned before and during the marriage were 100% mine. The agreement he had signed 10 years ago with a smile, thinking it was a silly formality from his overly business-minded wife. He looked at the documents, then at me with terrified eyes. "You planned all of this," he whispered. "I planned it from the moment I saw you holding her in the department store," I replied. "What did you think I was, Ethan? A stupid woman who would make a scene, cry, and beg you to come back? You underestimated me." But Chloe, my family." He tried to grasp for a lifeline. "Chloe will be fine," I said. "She'll be sad, but she'll recover. She will build her own life away from your family's lies. In fact, I've saved her." Ethan slumped, no longer kneeling, sitting on the floor and leaning against the leg of the sofa, his gaze empty. "Where will I go?" he asked quietly, the voice of a lost child. "Not my problem anymore," I said, pointing towards our bedroom. "No, more accurately, my bedroom. Pack your bags, just your clothes. I've already called a car service. It should be waiting outside. Isabelle, please, just for tonight, let me sleep in the guest room." "No," I said firmly, "I don't want to share the air in my home with you. Not for another second." E looked at me, searching for any remnant of compassion, any remnant of love, any memory of 10 years of marriage, but found nothing, only steel. This house, I said slowly, making sure he understood. S in my name. The car you drive every day is a company asset. All company credit cards under your name have already been blocked since I took over the accounts. He stammered. You've taken everything from me. I haven't taken anything from you, Ethan, I corrected. E simply taken back what was mine. You came to me with nothing 10 years ago, and you will leave the same way tonight. I crossed my arms. You have 24 hours to sign those divorce papers. Take them to my lawyer's office tomorrow morning. Or else, he asked weakly. Or else, I pointed to the folder in his hands. That second bundle of evidence will go straight to the district attorney's office. Embezzlement of $3 million in company funds, the proof is rock solid. You'll go to prison immediately, Ethan. For years, I gave him a slight smile. My first real smile of the night. The choice is yours. Leave quietly as a poor but free man, or go out with a bang and become a convict. Hat was the final blow. He trembled violently, knowing he had lost on every front. With the last of his strength, he staggered to his feet, no longer daring to look at me, and walked heavily towards the bedroom. I heard the sound of closet doors opening, the zipping of suitcases. No more crying, just the sound of a resigned man packing his bags. 10 minutes later, he came out with one large suitcase and a backpack, looking like an expensive homeless man. He walked to the front door, his hand already on the doorknob. One more thing, I said. He stopped but didn't dare to turn around. You still owe me $3 million. I won't forget it. Consider it a personal debt, and I will claim it until you pay me back. He didn't answer. He opened the door and walked out, disappearing into the dark of the night. The door closed silently. I was alone in my big, silent house. I walked to the window and watched as the car service turned on its headlights and drove away, taking 10 years of my marriage with it. I didn't cry. I didn't feel relief. I just felt an emptiness. This chapter was over, and tomorrow I would have to start a new one. 1 year later, the scenery was different. No more New York skyscrapers or air-conditioned boardrooms. The landscape in front of me was the endless blue of the Pacific Ocean. I was in Malibu, in a private villa I had built on a cliffside, its architecture open with a predominance of natural wood and stone, no walls to block the sea breeze. This was my place of retreat and work, all at once. I was lying comfortably on a lounge chair by the edge of the infinity pool, no longer wearing stiff business attire, but a thin white linen kaftan that billowed in the wind. My hair was longer, loose, and healthier than before. My skin was slightly tanned. I looked younger, more serene. On the small table beside me was a glass of coconut water, and my work tablet. As for my business, after firing Ethan, I did a major restructuring, eliminating the inefficient departments he managed, selling that subsidiary, and investing the funds in a new sector, green technology and sustainable real estate. The Isabelle group grew twice as fast. I now delegated more tasks and managed everything remotely. I had just finished a video call with Chloe. Our relationship had taken time to heal. At first, she was devastated, angry with me for publicly humiliating her family, angry with Ethan, angry with the world, and she cut off contact with everyone. But time healed. 6 months ago, she contacted me, saying she had moved to Singapore, started a new life, and was taking an your design course. She apologized for blaming me. The video call just now had been cheerful. She showed me her small but elegant new apartment, and talked about her first project. Isabelle, she said at the end of the call, her smile genuine, thank you. I really hated you before. I thought you were the villain, but now I realize you saved me. I don't know what would have become of me if I had married into that family of frauds. You saved yourself, Chloe, I said softly. You chose to stand up. I'm proud of you. He call ended, and I smiled. At least something good had come out of that whole mess. I put down my phone, picked up my tablet, intending to read global business news, but my eyes were drawn to an article in a gossip column, a news portal known for being scathing and often publishing paparazzi photos. The headline was sensational. Disgraced socialite Victoria brawls with private driver in market, allegedly owed to loan shark debt. Out of curiosity, I clicked on it. The article was short, but the photo said it all. Taken from across the street and blurry, the figure was unmistakable. The background was a crowded, dirty farmer's Market, piles of vegetables and flies buzzing in the distance. In the middle of the crowd stood Victoria, not the Victoria I knew, not the elegant woman in an emerald green dress, but an old, tired woman. Her once beautifully styled hair was now frizzy with gray roots showing, tie up haphazardly. She wore faded floral pajamas, thin but with a puffy face, screaming with her mouth wide open, one hand gripping a man's hair. And that man was Ethan. He no longer wore an expensive suit, but a light blue driver's uniform shirt stained with sweat. His once firm body was soft, his face covered by an unkempt beard, struggling to free himself from Victoria's grip, his face contorted in pain and overwhelming humiliation. The article explained the rest. After the engagement scandal, Victoria's reputation was shattered, her high society friends shunning her, her business, which relied heavily on connections and image, going bankrupt within a few months. Her son, Matthew, refused to see her again, rumored to have moved to Canada and changed his last name. Victoria sold her luxurious house, her cars, her handbag collection, her jewelry, but her extravagant lifestyle habits were hard to break. In a year, she was in debt to loan sharks. As for Ethan, he had signed the divorce papers the next day, walking out of my life a poor man with a shattered reputation, no company in New York willing to hire him due to the scandal's magnitude. He tried several small businesses but had no talent, only good at spending my money, and eventually declared bankruptcy. Ironically, the only person left in his world was Victoria, and vice versa. They were no longer together for love, but out of desperation. Ethan, the charismatic ex-executive, now worked as Victoria's personal driver, driving her around in a beat-up rental car, reduced to the servant of the woman he once adored. The photo, according to the article, was taken when they had a violent fight in the market, Victoria berating Ethan for not having enough money to pay the loan sharks. I stared at the photo for a long time, seeing the two people who had conspired to destroy me, who had looked down on me. Ethan, who thought I was a boring wife, now trapped serving a shrewish old woman. Victoria, who had insulted me for being a small business owner, now having to fight in a dirty market for lack of grocery money. They got what they deserved, trapped with each other in poverty, in hatred, in an instant karma of their own making. The sound of the waves crashing against the cliff below sounded like a silent applause. I didn't feel anger, didn't feel vengeful, didn't even feel pity, only humor. A faint smile touched my lips, then widened, and I laughed, not a loud, mocking laugh, but a quiet, genuine laugh, a laugh of relief, the laugh of someone who has just finished watching an absurd play. Karma was indeed funny. I didn't need a complicated revenge, I just had to let the bad people live with each other. I put down the tablet, picked up my glass of coconut water, and drank. It tasted truly fresh. I looked at the blue ocean, the sun beginning to set, dyeing the sky orange and purple. My real life had just begun.